What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Neon Spotlight. This is the segment on my channel where I go back through the Neon production company's entire filmography from the first film they released all the way until whenever I get caught up. And this is the 11th film in Neon's catalog that I've watched. And what's interesting is this is the third documentary that I've watched. It seems like Neon really enjoys funding and producing documentaries, which is cool because as someone who loves film, I love watching all different genres of film. And a lot of times I feel like I don't pay a ton of attention to documentary. I watch a lot of like limited documentary series on Netflix, and I always really enjoy documentaries, but I never like go out of my way consistently to watch documentaries. And what I was really excited about this one in particular is this got a ton of awards recognition when it came out, and I remember it being discussed very heavily. And for some reason, I just never got around to seeing it, but I know a lot of people were talking about it very positively, which gave me a lot of hope that I would enjoy this. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is Three Identical Strangers. Three Identical Strangers is directed by Tim Wardle. New York, 1980. Three complete strangers accidentally discover that they're identical triplets separated at birth. The 19-year-old's joyous reunion catapults them into international fame, but also unlocks an extraordinary and disturbing secret that goes beyond their own lives and could transform our understanding of human nature forever. So I was really excited to watch this because I'd heard a ton of positive reviews for this in the past, and I knew it had a ton of awards recognition when it first came out. And what I'll say about this movie, I think it's an incredibly mixed bag for me. I think there's a lot of positives that I can say about the movie, but I also think it definitely has its fair share of flaws. And I'm going to break it all down when I discuss the movie with you today. So at the beginning of the documentary, we are introduced to one of these three brothers. And I believe the first one we're introduced to is Robert. And we have three brothers. It's Robert, Eddie, and David. And Robert is going back to school. He gets to school. Robert is going to college, I believe. He gets to college and he meets up with one of his friends. And when he gets there, he's 19 years old. And all the people on the campus recognize him. And he has no idea why. He's like, I've never been here before. I've never met any of these people. He said women come up and like kiss him on the cheek. Guys are giving him hugs and high fives. He doesn't know what's going on. And his roommate walks in and is just completely bewildered and says, wait a minute, you're not Eddie. And he's like, who's Eddie? And so he finds out that he has an identical twin. And this news team comes out. They cover the entire story. And through that news story, their other brother, Daniel, sees that on TV and they realize that they were triplets that were separated at birth. And the three of them come together. They end up forming a very tight-knit bond and relationship with one another, but they try to figure out why were they separated at birth and never told about it. And the entirety of the documentary is us studying why these three were separated at birth and what the motivations were behind it. So like I said, this documentary is very much a mixed bag for me, but I'll start with the positives. I really like the presentation of this. It's very slick and natural. They do a really good job, not only just with like the sound editing and the transitions, but there's also like live reenactments in moments where they hire actors. And I think it makes it really compelling. It's really easy to kind of immerse yourself into because of the visual presentation. And they do a nice job kind of mixing in talking heads elements with those things. And there's like newspaper clippings, footage of them on TV. And presentation is always incredibly important when it comes to documentary, because if it's all just talking heads, if the subject matter isn't super interesting, it's really easy to lose an audience. And I can really see why this was so popular because of the presentation in it. It's really slick. There's good use of music, sound design is really excellent. Just all of those elements, like the technical part of the film is really great. I also think what helps is it's a very interesting story. And these guys, when they do their interviews, they're very likable. They have a charm to them. Just hearing a story like this, it's very different. You just kind of don't believe it as it's going on. Like the probability of three triplets being born separated at birth and never being told about it. It's easy to immerse yourself in that story. And then they introduce elements here here and there of like mystery and intrigue to kind of keep you on the edge of your seat to get to the very end of the documentary. And I like those elements of it. But that's about where my positives end. I think where this movie becomes a mixed bag for me is, for starters, it starts to get really repetitive in a way that it really overstays its welcome. It feels like this could have almost been an episode of like a documentary series rather than a full hour and a half movie. And you can tell, especially towards the third act, where the directors were really having a hard time padding the runtime of the movie. You can just see where they keep repeating the same things and having the same conversations about the brothers and like where they were at in a specific point. And they'll just kind of reiterate these points that you can already understand as an audience member without needing expositional dialogue from a person on screen, just constantly telling you the same thing over and over again. And it really started to lose me at about the 50-minute mark. I started to kind of check out a little bit. And I found out as the movie was getting towards the end, when it was just repeating itself, I just didn't care all that much. And I also think I took a documentary film class in college and I really loved it. My professor did an incredible job, really just like, reiterating the importance of documentary. And when he discussed documentary, he talked about the importance of documentaries. What is the message you're trying to get across? Like when you're making a documentary, it's damn near impossible to stay unbiased when you're creating something. So you're trying to get a message to an audience. This movie, I'm not really sure what the message is trying to be. I feel like, it's conveying a really great story, and you could say, well, it's about family persevering, or it's about like science being misused for the wrong reasons. There's a couple of little things that you can try to like circle around, but then it gets into mental health a little bit, but it seems kind of glazed over. And it seems like the director, whatever his intentions may be, they just weren't executed in the best way possible. I was left incredibly unsatisfied at the end of this movie because it kept posing the same question and never gave you an answer to the question. And I think the importance of documentary, you can watch true crime documentaries where they're unsolved cases that you don't know what happened, but there's always some kind of closure to it, whether that's we're still searching, like, and you get something about the victims or whatever it may be. It was just kind of like, okay, there were these three brothers, there's some tragedy involved, it's really kind of upsetting, but they're trying their best to move on in their lives, but there wasn't much more to it. I feel like we didn't really get the individual personalities of these brothers enough as well for anything to really stick out all that much. It just, like I said, it felt like a really interesting story. Like, sure, it's really easy to depict a story about three identical triplets being separated at birth and coming back together. It's easy to be fascinated by that, but I wanted so much more. And I don't think this is bad by any means. Like I said, it's really well presented. It was an easy watch for the most part, but I wish that there was more thought in the payoff and how they were going to make this thing really hit home hard. And I think as far as documentaries are concerned, you could see a lot worse, but that's why this movie ended up being a pretty mixed bag for me. So have you seen Three Identical Strangers? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this had its goods and its bads. It was an entertaining watch, but I don't necessarily know if I would watch it again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.